All right, we're into lesson 37, book 3, beginning rock guitar. Now, today we're going to talk about vibrato, and you want to get kind of a hummingbird vibrato eventually. But we're going to start easy. This exercise will be really easy to do, and it's good for developing vibrato. The thing about vibrato is there's pulling vibrato and pushing vibrato. Uh, Generally, it's easier to pull. I was to move the string. I was hooking my finger on the string, and from the wrist, I was turning off my big knuckle and pulling the string, and then relaxing it. I'm not pulling and pushing. I'm pulling and relaxing. And that's the easiest vibrato to do. And having said that, you do want to develop a pushing vibrato eventually. And because if you're on the first string, you can't do a pulling vibrato because it pulls it off the fretboard, right? So you have to push, and that's more difficult. To me, it's about 3 to 5 times harder to do a pushing vibrato than a pulling vibrato. I had a friend when I was a teenager who was a guitarist, and he was really good, really had a good feel on guitar, and he always did a pushing vibrato. And but he was the only person I know who did that on every string. When he did a vibrato, it was a pushing vibrato. Real groovy kind of vibrato he had. But we're going to pull, and the easiest note to start with is the third string at the 12th fret, because the third string is the loosest, most flexible string, and the 12th fret would be the most flexible fret because it's the halfway point between your bridge and where the string goes over the nut. And it's real relaxed and loose. First of all, positioning is very important. You want to do your vibrato, like the generating a vibrato starts in the wrist. Like they say, it's all in the wrist. And so you want to learn to, you might even away from the guitar just try to rock your hand like this from the wrist, and then it's almost like when you really get it going, it's like a shake, and it almost looks like a hummingbird's wings, And so we want to use the wrist and focus on the wrist, but we turn the hand off the big knuckle, and the big knuckle is up against the neck, usually a couple of frets behind where the tip of the finger is. Like I've got the tip of my finger on the 12th fret, but my knuckle is around the 10th, almost to the 9th fret. It depends on the size of your hand, but you don't want the knuckle up right where the tip of the finger is. You want to spread it out a little bit. So you want your finger curled about this much, and we're going to use this edge of the finger to hook onto the string to pull it. And you always want to have the fingertip right up to the fret. And the fret kind of helps as a groove, kind of following the fret like a groove and keeping it up against the fret. So you have to keep a constant pressure with a vibrato or you're going to lose your note. The first thing is, just kind of play around with that 12th fret of the third string and do a really slow vibrato, very deliberate, but do it in a regular rhythm, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and I'm pulling, relaxing, pulling, relaxing. So try to feel like you're pulling by turning off that big knuckle, and then the string brings your finger back, because when you pull, it's it's like pulling of a archery bow back the string, and then you release it, and the string just goes right back to where it started. And that's sort of like a vibrato. You pull and then relax. The string brings you back, but you got to keep a constant pressure. The first thing you might want to try is an intermittent vibrato. I call it intermittent, in that you're, see, so I'm hitting the note, letting it ring a bit, and then I jerk from the wrist. So it's like a thrust of the wrist. That helps you learn to feel this in your wrist, and you get a feel for the wrist being the motor behind your vibrato. So you could start at the 12th fret and then go to the 11th fret and work your way down. And don't worry about whether it sounds good or not. Just try to get it to ring, and then just kind of jerk the wrist and turn off that knuckle. Okay, so that's an intermittent vibrato. And you could also do that on the second string. Maybe do it 3 times for every pluck. Pluck the note, let it ring a bit, and then do 3 intermittent vibratos just from a jerking of the wrist. And that will help you get started. And then what we have written as the exercise in the book is eighth notes. So you're doing an eighth note pulse, thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a slow, fairly slow, but not extremely slow, sort of like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then go to the 11th fret, 3 and 4. I'm going to go ahead and follow it all the way down to the 2nd fret, maybe even the 1st fret. 5, 6, sorry, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and you want the pulse to be consistent. Like, you don't want to bend further sometimes and less other times. Keep it pretty consistent. We'll just go to the 2nd fret. You can do the 1st fret, but then go to the 12th fret of the 2nd string. That's going to be a little bit more challenging to get a good vibrato sound. It really doesn't feel that much different though. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and don't worry about it being perfect, but you don't want an erratic vibrato. You want it to bend it about the same amount each time. Basically all you need to hear is a pulse, especially when you're first getting started. Rolling off that knuckle, trying to feel it in the wrist. 4 and 1 and 2 and play right up to the fret. And then if you really want to be ambitious, you could try a pushing vibrato. Now with a pushing vibrato, it's real easy to get a kind of an unwanted pluck on the 2nd string. So I'll usually rest my pick on the 2nd string just to make sure there isn't any added noise. And going this slow, you could probably start doing a pushing vibrato. So you push and relax. So 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and always roll off the big knuckle. Sometimes with a pushing vibrato, my knuckle is a little further away from the tip of the finger. Okay, so pushing vibrato is, kind of like the opposite of a pulling vibrato. Um, but if you're just beginning with vibrato, you probably ought to develop both. Uh, and you could even do a pushing vibrato on the second string. You might want to do that first. I didn't think about that, but so do the second string with a pulling vibrato, and then also repeat it with a pushing vibrato, and then go to the first string, which is a little harder. And make sure you plant the pick on the second string so that you don't get like a unwanted noise of the second string. Sometimes you'll get that, and it's a little bit. It's not, to me. It's not that annoying unless it's really loud, But generally, you'll hear sometimes other strings that make little sounds, when you're doing a vibrato or a bend. But this is just an introduction to vibrato. We're not really ambitious right now to get a hummingbird vibrato. You don't want to go too fast too soon, because you're in fear of getting what we call a nanny goat vibrato, which is maybe for psychedelic music that was the norm. It was a real kind of intense vibrato that's erratic, kind of like a mosquito, and you don't want to. You just want a smooth vibrato, just like Mavis Staples' voice, very smooth, like any gospel singer. So enjoy this. If you do enjoy it, like this video, please, and subscribe if you have not, and look for John Hedger Guitar Studio on Instagram and Facebook. Okay.